At ease. It's your boy Soul Immortal. First off, I have to give a shout out to South Carolina. I spent the majority of last week out in Hilton Head, and brothers, I can tell you the experience. The only way I can describe it is majestic, right? So I plan on going out there, just spending a few days on the beach, relaxing, but ended up rubbing some elbows with some old schoolers that kind of just took me up under their wing. I ended up catching a boat ride out to a private island, having a oyster boil, man. And like I said, it was, the only way I could describe it was a majestic experience. So on one of my last few days there, I was just sitting on the beach, enjoying some time with my creator, watching the sunrise, listening to the ocean. And I get this email from this brother that sent my energy in a completely different direction. Now, I always refer to, or you always hear me talk about the time in my life when I was at the bottom of the bottom, right? But reading this brother's letter, like physically and spiritually, took me back to that place. Now the brother's letter was long, but I'm just going to read a few of the major topics that he spoke about. He says, I'm 27, I'm still living at home with my mother. He states that he wants to move out, but he doesn't have the means. He talks about pursuing a career in HVAC, but that the area he lives in is extremely racist and prejudiced. He admits that he has a lack of strong family foundation and that he's lacked masculine presence in his life. And the part that caught my attention, the brother said that he often has thoughts of suicide. And I could relate to that. And at the end, the brother made a statement, and I'm quoting him here. He says, I'm just another brother that needs to be salvaged. Now, reading this brother's email affected me so much that for the next 2, maybe 3 days, I had to just shut down. I had to cut my ringer off. I had to, disconnect from social media. I had to just get time to myself, and I just had to be thankful for the position that I was in and from the place that I came from. And I was just thinking about this brother's situation. There's a parable, brother, in the book of Matthew 17. And it talks about the disciples trying to heal this young man. They were trying over and over to heal this young man, and they just couldn't do it. And at some point, Jesus came up on the scene. And it says within an hour, Jesus had healed the young man. And the disciples went to Jesus and said, we've been trying to do this for days. Like, why couldn't we do it? And verse 20 says this. It says, and Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. See, brother, I can sit here and tell you, hey, you know what, you need to go out and get you a degree and your life will change. I can sit here and say, brother, go out and get you a second job, stack your money, invest in this, move like this, and you'll get this kind of result. I could do that. But brother, what I'm going to tell you today is something that's going to supersede any level of education you can get. What I'm going to tell you today is going to supersede any job or any income that you could gain that would change your situation. What I'm going to tell you today is going to overrule any form of racism that you could even imagine experiencing. Brother, today I'm going to show you how to change your life instantly and dramatically. And I'm saying so fast that you won't even understand why you haven't always lived your life like this. Brother, what I'm going to show you today is how to move mountains. Let's talk about it. So the first thing is this. It's a must, brother, that you first know who you are. Now that sounds so minute, but it's very important. So on my last video, I made this comment. I said, people need to stop thinking of a God and start thinking as a God. Brother, you have no idea how many emails I got about that, saying, oh, this was blasphemy and this, a handful of people unfollow me because of that. But the only thing is this, they are those who just lack understanding. And let me elaborate. So I have a son, right? Looks just like me. Now, right now, my son, he walks like a boy, he talks like a boy. He does the things that young boys do. But one day, after he's lived long enough, one day after he's experienced a certain amount of things, he'll become a man just like me. Now, from a father's standpoint, not only do I want to see him do the things that I do, but I want to see him do greater things. That sound familiar? See, for the last 27 years of your life, brother, the church has told you that you were made in the Creator's image, but they just didn't elaborate on that. See, right now, you walk like the common man. You talk like the common man. And your thinking is just like the common man. But after today, brother, you'll be able to transcend all of the common man's problems. Degrees and racism, feminism, and all the other things we talk about, brother, will be a thing of the past. I remember a couple of years ago, there was an interview it was an interview of Lil Wayne, and they asked Lil Wayne about Black Lives Matter. Now the brother was stoned. I don't know what he was on, but he was out of his mind. But the thing is, a lot of people criticized him after that interview because the reporter was saying, hey, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? What do you think about the things that are going on in the world today? And he was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? My life is this. And everybody was just, shooting at him, saying, brother, what is he thinking about? But once I looked past, whatever drug he was on, I understood where he was coming from. I fully understood where he was coming from. See, once you get a certain level of knowledge, brother, you begin to create your own world. And all he was saying during the interview was like, hey, you know what? I've created my world. Don't bring that to me. He wasn't saying, hey, I'm not saying that all this stuff isn't taking place. I'm not saying that black people aren't getting killed in the street. I'm not saying that all this, whatever is going on is not going on. But what I'm saying is that I've created my own world, and how dare you come to me and try to make me think like a common man? That's all he was saying, and I fully understood that, brother. I've traveled the 7,000 miles to walk through the sands of Egypt, and I can tell you this: it wasn't for the exotic women. It wasn't because they had the best Ethiopian yurgachefe. And it wasn't to take epic pictures by one of the 7 wonders of the world. Brother, the only reason I went over there was to obtain knowledge. Me and this brother were having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about, there are reasons they won't allow you to take pictures inside the pyramids. There's a reason why they don't want certain knowledge that's in the Middle East to get back to the West. And the reason is, brother, is because they don't want you to know who you are. Like I said before, you need to stop thinking of a God and start thinking as a God. Now, brother, what I'm about to say, I'm sure you're not going to like it. But what you have to understand is that everything you mentioned in that letter, your living situation, your income, the interaction that you have with the women that you talked about, you have to understand that it's all your fault. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow, but you have to understand that you can't say, now I have a knowledge of who I am on one hand, by saying, hey, you know what? Now I fully understand that I am made in the image and the likeness of the Creator, right? You can't say that and then on the other hand say, you know what? All the things that are going on around me is this person's fault. This is a person's fault because of the man or because of this. You can't do both. You know what I'm saying? You have to fully understand that everything in your life was created by you and is a result of your thinking, brother. Proverbs 18, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Matthew 21, ask, believe, receive. Mark 11, if a man say unto this mountain, be removed, he shall have the things that he said. Brother, once you come into a certain knowledge of who you are, the first thing you have to understand is that it's all your fault. But that's a good thing, because what that says is that now you are in full control on what takes place going forward. So the first thing you have to do, brother, is take responsibility of where you are and shift your thinking. Now let's talk about moving mountains. Immortal minds. See, at some point, you're going to realize, brother, that every single human being is made up of two entities, right? Now, there's one side of you that lives in fear. There's one side that is fully aware of all the obstacles in this world, right? But on the other side, there's a side of you, or there's a part of you that's immortal. It's going to live forever. It has no fear. It doesn't even know what fear is, right? Now, Christianity refers to this as, the Son of Man, the Christ, and that's where you get the Trinity, right? Now, in the book, Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill refers to this as self, that other me, and again, it's where you get the Trinity. Now, the objective of life, let's say that the objective of the game of life is to, one, be able to live in this world, which is your carnal man, but first identify that there is a perfected side of you. In other words, you have to identify the Christ side of you, or that other me, in other words. And the second objective of life is to merge or marry the two. But that's not easy, because what you have in between is you have resistance. Now, in Islam, they refer to this resistance as jihad. Now, jihad is not what CNN tells you it is. Jihad is not what Fox News tells you it is. What jihad is the spiritual battle that a man has with himself. It's a spiritual battle that takes place when one is trying to merge or marry the two. is what I'm saying. But once you marry the two, once you take this carnal, this man full of fear, and merge or marry it with this immortal being, this being that has no fear, what do you get? You take two different mindsets and bring it to one. You get immortal minds. In other words, you gain the ability to be able to operate in this physical realm, but to be able to think like that Christ, to think like that other me. See, once you merge these two, you come to the understanding that there is no heaven and earth, right? There is no life and death. That's the thinking of the common man. Because see, what you've done is you've tapped into all sources at one time. This is what the Kundalini meant when they said, as above, so below. This is what the Bible is referring to when it says, thy will be done on earth, just as it is in heaven. All is one. Now, the only thing needed at this point to move mountains, the only thing needed at this point to create whatever type of life you want is to understand the difference between sight and vision. Sight versus vision. Now I hear several preachers and pastors talking about how many people have a lack of belief, right? But in my opinion, belief has never been the issue, because in my mind, all people have the exact same amount of belief. It's just a matter of what they're putting their belief in, right? Now, when it comes down to sight and vision, I made a whole video on that. So I'm going to try to compress all of that into one small, segment, for the sake of this video. But in the Bible, right, Jesus, he gives this long spiel, and ultimately he says, there are some people that will not taste death. And if you look at the whole spiel he was talking about, he was saying that there are some people that will come into this knowledge before they leave this earth. In other words, we talked about the two different sides, right? Now, once you die, once you leave this physical world, you're going to be in a state of perfection. You're going to be, one with the Creator. You're not going to be on this realm. You're going to be perfected, right? But he's saying that there are going to be some that get this knowledge before they even leave this world, right? And in the video that I made about this, I referred to a song by 2 Chainz, right? It's a song called Big Amount, 2 Chainz featuring Drake. And in that song, Drake is talking about how all this stuff in his life changed, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, crossed over to the other side, and I didn't even have to die. That's what that brother was talking about. He was talking about sight versus vision. And let me try to elaborate. See, when you wake up in the morning, right, you go to work, you cut the television on, you're hearing about how the stock market is crashing, you're hearing how job cuts are about to take place, you hear about how cancer and AIDS and all these diseases are spreading, you hear about all that stuff. See what you're observing that with is sight, right? Now, when you go to sleep at night, when you meditate, when you're walking and you're daydreaming, and when it seems like you just left this planet for a minute, you're in a different realm. You're in what I call the real world, right? Sight versus vision. And the objective is it comes down to where you're putting your beliefs. Are you putting your beliefs on the earthly things that you're seeing, or are you putting your beliefs on the spiritual side of things that you're creating? Because that real world, what it really consists of is your imagination. Your imagination is your creative power. There's a song by Rick Ross. called Freemason. And at the beginning of this song, he says, I see the sun at midnight. All that brother was saying is that he's come to a full, realization that the world that we know is completely upside down, right? In other words, what we're calling day is night. What we're calling night is day. What we're calling sleep is the real world. And this world that we live in right now, it is simply a reflection of the thoughts and the mindset that we have when we're in the real world. So, brother, in order to move mountains, in order to create whatever life you want to create, all you have to do is pour your beliefs, not in this world, but in the world of your imagination. In other words, brother, you need to study up on meditation, and we will. You need to study up on having the right mindset before you go to sleep, and we're going to touch on that. Because that is the recipe. That is the most crucial element in creating whatever life you want to create. The Bible says, ask for whatever you want and believe that you have these things. All it's saying is when you go to the real world, create what you want. But when you're back in this reality, to act as if. And acting as if is, I want to say part 5 or part 6 is what we're about to get into on Patreon. Acting as if. That is the concrete. That is the sugar to the recipe. You know what I'm saying? In conclusion, brother, I want to refer to the 12th chapter of Genesis. And it talks about the call of Abram to do greater things, right? And it says, now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Sometimes, brother, in order to see greater things in life, in order to, change our current situations, a lot of it has to do with just removing ourselves from our current environment, right? Because I'm a firm believer that we are a product of our environment. So sometimes it's just a matter of us leaving that environment, right? I can remember back in my 20s, I was 20, 21 years old. And when I left my hometown and joined the military, my life just slowly started to change. Later in life, when I started looking into the teachings of Abdullah, who ultimately taught everything he knew to the late and great Neville Goddard, is one of my favorite mentors. My life began to change at a much faster rate. And what I want to do, bro, is what it took me 40 years to learn, I want you to learn at 28. You know what I'm saying? And what you learn at 28, I want to make sure that you teach the brother that at 21, so he knows it. So we can end this whole cycle that we're in, guy. Again, your letter, it really affected me, man. And at minimum, for the next month at least, at minimum, I want you to call me at least once a week. You have my number. And I guarantee, brother, you will move mountains. It's your boy Soul Immortal, and I'm out.